Hey, I'm Chef D. Not only do I love serving food, I love being around a table. I love a great conversation, and I love finding out more about people. What makes them who they are? So join me at the kitchen table with me, Chef D. Welcome to At the Kitchen Table with me, Chef D, and my very special guest. And I've been waiting a long time to actually have a great conversation with this chef because our paths by a lot, but we never really get to spend time together. Chef John Higgins, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's good to see you, my friend.
Thank you, Darryl. Nice to see you. Yeah, it's like dancing, right? You're doing the foxtrot and I'm doing the tango, and you're doing the twist, and I'm doing the slosh. So it's like ships don't come together, but finally today, taking a long time.
And it has. Followed your career for many years. You've done some amazing things, and how did you get hooked up with being with the royal family?
You know something? I'm a great believer. Being Scottish, first of all, you've got true determination, and when someone says you can't do something, like way back in the 1300s when Robert the Bruce, beaten up thing by their friends to the south. There was a spider flying, and the spider took 8 times. Just kept on writing to Buckingham Palace, and it was like, don't even bother calling us. We'll call you. And then eventually, after writing 10, 11, 12 times, I got a letter back to ask me to come to London for an interview. Went to London, got the interview, and the best place I've lived. My driving license. I got to stay in Buckingham Palace for 2 and a bit years, and then I seen things that people can only wish to see, and have a great appreciation from behind the scenes. Because I think one of the challenges, Darryl, is the fact that you have all these preconceived assumptions, I should say, and sometimes it's so far from the truth that it's not even funny. And one thing I learned when I was working for the royal family over the years was believe half what you see, half what you hear, and half will be the truth. And it's so true. I mean, there were so many different things that happened. For instance, you've been a chef. It was the British tabloids at the time. The chef has given all the chefs Christmas off so they can go and spend it with their family. Well, I was at Windsor Castle cooking, so I don't know where everyone else was, but that's just a simple thing. But stuff there, so it was interesting, right? And different personalities as well.
I could just imagine. So, what brought you over to North America then? I'd like. Just you saw an opportunity, or was there a progress?
I'm going to be long-winded, so bear with me when I tell you the story.
Okay.
I believe in dreams. If you don't dream, dreams don't come true. So when I was about 10 years of age, I seen this big hotel in Scotland called Gleneagles Hotel, only 5-diamond Red Star Hotel. My uncle took me there. I was caddying for playing golf, and I thought, wow, I'd never seen anything like this in my life before. It was like just awesome, and I thought I want to be a part of this one day. And I thought I wanted to be a chef then. So I thought, best way to get here is become a chef. So that was my ambition in life, was to work at Gleneagles. I went to Motherwell College, which was just near the town I come from in Bellshill, near Glasgow. And I went there, and there was a teacher, and this is the power of education. There was a teacher, Mr. Hogan, one Tuesday afternoon, and he was talking about different things he'd done. And he'd worked at Buckingham Palace, he worked at the Royal Yacht Britannia, he worked at the Central Hotel in Glasgow. He worked at Gleneagles. He worked in Jamaica. He worked in America and all that. And then he went teaching eventually. And I thought, Johnny boy, that's what you're doing. And that was it, honestly. And that's what started me. And then the Canadian thing was, my mother, I was about 12 or 13, get this beautiful postcard of this blue sky. I mean, you don't get blue skies in Glasgow, right? It's all grey like the wall there. Blue skies. Beautiful maple trees. I know they're not maple trees. They're just trees with red leaves. And I thought, I'm going to go there one day. I want to go there one day. So a long story short, went to Motherwell College, got my apprenticeship at the Central Hotel in Glasgow. There was I think there was about 140 applicants for 3 jobs. I got one of the 3 jobs. And then the company also owned Gleneagles Hotel. And my ambition in life was to be Gleneagles. And I was there when I was 19.
Wow.
So that was the premier place. It was just a great place to be. And then when I was there, I had already started writing to Buckingham Palace for a job. And in the meantime, the chef who used to be at Gleneagles Hotel years ago we started up the Four Seasons Hotels in Canada. He opened up the Montreal for the Olympic Games, Chef Merard. And it was just one of those things, he went there. So I thought, they offered me a job to come out to Canada. And I thought, I'm going to go to Buckingham Palace first. So I got the job at Buckingham Palace, came to Toronto in 81. And I was only here, I worked at the Four Seasons Inn in the Park out. It's not there anymore, Leslie and Eglinton. Then I found out there's a Four Seasons downtown. And I thought, God, I says, that's that. So they told me the difference, and it says, well, stay here this is all my head, right, and dreaming.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay here for a year, and then I'm going to go to Yorkville. Then I found out there was a Four Seasons in Washington, D.C., was the best Four Seasons for food and the whole thing. The chef was a tough guy, right? And in that same time, that period, we had, yourself after the service, and that chefs all sit to get down together, sometimes with the waiters, not with the waiters type thing, and they were all saying, what are you going to be, what's your ambitions, and that. They were just usual chef, blah blah blah, chat, and I says I was going to be the chef at the King Edward Hotel, and I was going to be the chef at the Four Seasons. I was only in the country a couple of months, but I was already scouting places that I wanted to be. And another ambition was to be executive chef at the time I was 30, and a big hotel. That was it from day one. I thought 30 is old. 30 is like ancient. I mean, 30 now is young, right? That to me was old. Anyway, needless to say, I worked at the Inn in the Park for a year. They transferred me to Yorkville, Four Seasons. I was there for 2.5 years. And then the luckiest break in my life, I got to go and work at the Four Seasons in Washington, D.C. And the chef there was the toughest. I wouldn't say he was mean, but tough guy. And he put me through the ringer. My food improved. My thoughts on life improved as far as culinary. I gained so much knowledge. I was much richer. And he also insisted that I worked at the front of the house. So my day off, I used to come and I'd work in the front of the house, learn, take wine classes and that. Yeah. And then eventually I come back to Toronto and to work at the certain place for 2 years. And then I became my ambition in life. I was in 1988, at the ripe old age of 28, I became executive chef at the King Edward. So that's in a nutshell. So sorry for being so long-winded, but that's how it all happened.
But do you think, and I worked for Nigel Didcock at Langdon Hall, and I was working for a steakhouse before that, and we had no rules, we had no structure, you know what I mean? And when you come into somebody that is really tough and lots of structure, you balk at it at first, and then you go, no, I'm learning lots. You know what I mean? And to this day, my palate changed the day that I met Nigel.
Yeah.
And do you think the same thing? Yes, it's tough and it's really hard to go through as a young person, but you need that little bit of, maybe heavy-handedness is the wrong word, but something like that can help you get through the next,
Totally, Darryl, exactly. And it wasn't heavy-handedness or nothing else. I was nothing like that. But it was just like, it was you going to see, to be successful, you have to be uncomfortable.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. But it was just, I was a really good sous chef in Yorkville. I was looking after a restaurant at the time that was very good called Truffles.
Yep.
And the Four Seasons. And I went there and I was almost like an apprentice again. It was like the food, the way they cook things. I mean, you would make a banquet sauce for the banquet. It was the biggest banquet you do is 300-400, but you would make the sauce exactly everything in the restaurant for a fine dining restaurant. That's the way you cooked in banquets. That was it. And he would tell you, if you can't do it, you can go back to Canada. That was it. And I'll tell you something. The first 8 weeks, 6-8 weeks, I was almost like it put me to a place of total uncomfortableness. That's such a word, but I was totally uncomfortable. I wasn't sure if this was for me, but you know something, that determination to sort of say, I'm going to do this. And it was like, and it was just like everything, and what had happened was like, if I hadn't the experience when I done my apprenticeship at the Central Hotel in Glasgow, which was exactly the same, because I went from college to the Central Hotel, we had a Michelin star restaurant there as well. I mean, in Glasgow in 1976, if you says you've got a Michelin star restaurant, they think you've got a garage selling car tires or something. And Michelin star restaurants wasn't even in the
right.
It wasn't even in the radar. But I didn't realize till after that I drew in all those experiences of not knowing You know, when I went to Gleneagles, I was a chef de partie. The guy who was my commie was 30 and I was 17. I was 19, sorry. So there was a lot of things you pick up along the way, but it was almost like, you know, it was like a finishing school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was, sorry about that.
It's all good.
And I should have put that off. Sorry about that. But it was one of those things. It was like a finishing school and having the ability to realize where you wanted to go. And it also gave me the opportunity. And this wasn't just me. This was many chefs that Chef McNeil had put through. It gave you an opportunity to think if you really wanted to do this or where you wanted to go. But you just knew that you were learning something, and it was uncomfortable, but it was, maybe it was unkind at the time. But it was, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for that. And I informed the students and friends in industry, you know, if I've got a problem, and sometimes I'm doing something, whether it's a budget or a forecast or a recipe or something, you know, like food connecting, sometimes in life, I think I automatically go to my automatic pilot and think, what would the chef do in this time? What would he do? And it brings me back to a sort of focused or an area. I saw, okay, how are you going to do this? Just forget all the drama around you. Thinking, where do you have to go? How are you going to get there? And how long is it going to take? Or who do you have to get involved? Or if I don't know this, who do I have to go to get advice? And then it's just there. But he was this guy for me is like a god. And the other thing was, he trained, he was a Scottish guy. He trained he worked at Gleneagles Hotel, and all the people he'd worked with were all my chefs. So you can imagine, and he used to make comments like, is that what you done at the Central Hotel in Glasgow? I don't think Stuart Cameron would have done this and that. Oh man. It was like small things and like talking about waking you up. But it was, and then he was like, he was into wines and the server. He was like the chef come food and beverage manager before this sort of thing was even thought of. And even then, Darryl, he had the Wine Spectator Gold Award. You know, he was just a fanatic in wine. He used to go with the corporate F&B from Four Seasons and buy all the wines in California and the house wines for Four Seasons. I mean, this guy's, he was a god, right? I mean, he's still, I mean, he's retired, sort of thing. But he was just one of those people that put you on that sort of cutting edge that you could see something different. And plus, he helped everyone else along. I mean, he used to send me at Christmas time, he would send me a cookbook. I mean, I knew a book would come out from Ducasse. I would get the cookbook. He would give you something that was related, but he was always sort of an encourager. And that's what I think. I think that's sometimes what, you know, like you say with Nigel, you go and you see something different. You see a flair for something else, or you see a herb, or you see a sauce being made in a different way. Like in Washington, I mean, our chicken sauce was basically, I can remember it today, 300 pound of chicken bones in a stock pot reduced down with tomatoes, bay leaf, mirepoix, taken, strained into a big tilt kettle or a brat pan. You say reduced, and that was it. That was for, and you have 3 or 4 banquets during the week, and you know, got 100, 120, 300. You better yourself organized, and that's what it gave you. That sort of a organizational things. Like, you know, you do catering. If you're not organized in catering, forget it.
Yeah, it's
so that's a nutshell. So that's how I get started, and that's what inspired me.
So the King Eddie, I remember you were one of the first chefs that I can remember that would bring people into the kitchen to have dinner, like at the chef's table.
Yeah.
And that was something, was that something that your idea, or was that brought to you going, Chef, you should do this?
No, that was funny. I was at the Sutton Place beforehand, and that's what we done that table at that in the Sutton Place. So you got to meet people like, I'm trying to think of people that the first couple of people I'd met there. I mean, you met a lot of trendy people. I met Jerry Lewis, Dick Van Dyke. I mean, people today would likely say, who are they? Just Google. Dr. Google will tell you who they are.
Yeah.
And I got to meet so many people, and it was great. And then it was when I went to the King Eddie in 88, this must have been 89, maybe 1990, there was a serious recession. And the general manager, regional vice president, Mr. Koch, wonderful guy, he came to me and he says, Chef, we have to, we can't just put our head in the sand. How are we going to make revenue? And I was thinking, wow, and everyone at the time it was cutthroat. Darryl, there were restaurants were cutting the prices. Sunday brunches that were possibly, we were charging the King Eddie in 1988 $36 for Sunday brunch. Mm-hmm. Other hotels and restaurants were taking it down to $20, $25, or one for two. And I thought, if the quality of food is good, and we're putting the same quality, why are we discounting it? Because and I just had this premonition that if people, when you're good, and you're serving good food, and you discount it, people are going to say, well, what's the catch? So we never done that, so we kept the same price. So I decided to go and do a chef table. Anyway, so the chef table, it was basically, I says to Mr. Crook, I says, and it was like a business as well, right? What's the return on investment? I says, okay, I think it was like, it cost me $800. And that was for a chandelier in the kitchen, some music, some different plates, just funky plates. And we did table, and all I would do was, because, recession type thing is, I would go around the kitchen, make a menu for my head, 7, 8 courses, 10 people. And here was the rules for the chef table. If it's 2 people, you pay for 10. If it's 5, it's 5. But if you wanted a chef table, the time we did a setup and the deck on the whole thing, you had to pay for 10 people. The amount of people would come in for 2 and pay for 10. And I thought, you people get so much money. But there was a cost to setting up as well. But we would do that, and I would just use things that were lying around, and it created an environment where I could experiment. The apprentices who were working with me could work beside me, the chefs and the sous chefs. We come up with an idea for a dish, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I've got lamb here. I've done this one dish, for example, was lamb with escargot, and it was just, we had a loin of lamb. We had snails left that were just there in the fridge, you weren't moving, type thing, still fresh. And I put the 2 things together, a garlic cream sauce and a red wine sauce with, I think it was roasted onions or something. I can't remember what it was anymore. But we've done that, and people were like, wow. And I thought, this is good. And then that same dish, I done for a global competition, and I won a trip for 2 to the Olympic Games in Barcelona through just using that. So it created, it was an avenue for myself and the staff to create ideas, making things out of nothing. So it's like getting to your fridge at night. Tonight, if you come home from work, open the fridge. What am I going to do? So that it was something that gave me a lot of heart and soul, and sort of say, and to the cooks to sort of say, you can make anything out of nothing. You can make it taste good. But it's so that was it. And we used to charge. We get the front. I don't even think I got it. I could show it here. I don't have it here. I've tossed all that stuff out. Yeah, it's all gone. It was on the front page of the Financial Post magazine. And there was a picture with me with fish and chips, and they used to give fish and chips. They used to have miniature fish and chips. Yeah, and it was $250 a person. $250, and that's like 1990. Yeah. I mean,
that's amazing.
$250 a person plus wines. Yeah. So an average check already, you get 10 people, right? Yep. So you're up to, and sometimes it was $3,000 a time. We would do it in a recession. Twice a week, and you say, where's the money come from? Twice or 3 a week. There's $9,000, basically 10. So let's call it $10,000. Your 10 tables, you do it 10 times a year. That's $100,000. We were making more money at the chef's table than we were even when business come back in the restaurant. Sometimes, and sometimes people would come and they want champagne, no problem. And then what we done, Darryl, was that we would also take them into the Cafe Victoria and show the people at Cafe Victoria, because they'd possibly never seen it. And then I would listen to them and what they'd be talking about. And I'd talk about the event space, and we're doing an event next week. They would say, oh, are you busy? And I say, we're doing an event here. And then you would take them upstairs to the banquet floor and show them the banquet floor. And then I would take them, if I thought there was potential, upstairs to the 17th, 18th floor, which was the old Crystal Ballroom. Yep. It hadn't been used in 30 years. And that was a special VIP tour. So you're done. So normally, if you were lucky, they'd start talking about that. And then the amount of people come back, and I give them my card and all that. I said, if you want to come back and have a function or an event, here's my card. I will look after you personally. I'll do the menus. We can get together, because it was a recession. We had to do this, right? But that was the fun part of the job. The amount of weddings that I sold and people came just from the chef's table. And it was just, and it's all about, it's what you do every day. It's hospitality. Good morning, good afternoon, how are you? And if you know it's someone's birthday, or just sending, today, I'm a great believer. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but, I've got some cards still, right? Yep. So last night I met some people that were wonderful, and they looked after me. The guy, little guy shucking the oyster. So I got his name. I'm going to send him a card today.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference between a twat, I can send him an email and say thank you. It's not good enough. This is memorable. People are going to say, because if someone sent that, I got a card actually a couple of days ago from someone. I done something for the restaurant show from Garland, right? Someone sent me a little card.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe it's only $3, and a stamp said, let's call it $5.
Mm-hmm.
That's worth $1 million because people remember it, and I just believe, and that's what life. That's what we're missing sometimes, and not preaching about life and that sort of stuff, but you know yourself as you go back and you see someone or you give someone, here's some chocolate truffles for you. Here's something special.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to be treated special. Anyway, sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, it's funny you say that because my staff say that chef isn't happy unless he's giving something away, and it's so true. You know, we create experiences. That's what we've, you know, when we first got into this, and you know, I think if you put the true serum in the three chefs that are in my organization, our favorite times are either cooking for the bands in the green room or when we do the chef's dinners at people's homes, because you get to slow down. You're not crazy busy, and you get to share your passion again, because that's what it's about. When we come to the table, and you know, this is what the whole podcast is about, is coming to that table and enjoying it with people, right? And then I'm a people pleaser. That's why I got into this business, you know, and I think that's what takes us through this, the good and bad, is because you look for that smile, you look for that opportunity of taking them up to the crystal ballroom or wherever we are and going, we can make something happen here for you, you know, and I think that's an important part of it.
You know, and it's and the business, the food business, and whether you're working, I don't care whether you're working at a Subway type restaurant or you're working at a Raleigh Chateau at the wonderful Langdon Hall with Jason now. Mm-hmm. Jason was an apprentice at the King Eddie. Okay. I'll tell you. Go back and tell you a story about Jason Bangerer, right? But it's that sort of stuff when you do these other events. They recharge you as a human, and you reconnect it. So you go back to your roots. Whereas sometimes you have to do events in maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 1,000 people, and it's a different kind of animal you are, because you have to react differently to make it happen. But when you can do the things that create that passion for you, it's like him. And it being energized and like an energizer, what they call them, energizer the bunny type thing, you know, it just puts more, wow, you know, it brings you back to what makes you happy. And then that also, if you see it and that makes you happy, that also reflects to your staff, because I'm a great believer, happy staff make happy food, happy service as well. And that's what Jason Banger, I'll tell you a funny story about him, right? So, chef at Langdon Hall, great place, everything. Jason Banger was a very, very humble guy, right? Everyone thinks sometimes, you know, they don't see now what he's done. Jason Banger, when I was at the King Eddie, this was why the chef's table thing came up. When you were saying that, he was at George Brown, so he was doing a George Brown, and I knew someone who possibly knew his father or something else. Right? He kept on writing. He must have wrote the same type of thing, right? He must have wrote 10 times. He would phone me. He would come to see me at the King Eddie. He was looking for an apprenticeship, and I'm thinking, I don't have anything. I had so many staff. I had too many type thing, and there was no position. And I thought, so one day I brought him in, and I says, okay, I'll just be, you know, kind, considerate. See how this guy is. He's driving me nuts, and that's the way you get a job, because you flip it by the chef nuts. And I says, I'll see him, and just that's it, and hopefully we get over this, because there was no job for him. So anyway, he comes in, we start chatting. I thought maybe 10 minutes. An hour later, he's still there. We're chatting about different things. I thought, he's interesting. I like this kid, you know. He's got potential. He's got good attitude. He could go places if he gets the right job. But I didn't have the job. So about a month went through, and the next thing, the cafeteria downstairs had this restaurant to run in the hotel. Everyone's an expert. Everyone's a food critic in the cafeteria. Everyone's like, oh, here we go. You know, staff meal. It's like, oh, wow. Yeah. So anyway, I thought, don't have anyone. I'm going to phone out the kid at George Brown, that Jason guy. Anyway, phone him up, come in, the whole thing, get his resume, the whole thing. I says, okay, I got a job for you. Oh, shit, no problem. I says, but it's not what you want. I says, there's no promise here. I says, you come after you finish George Brown, but you have to go to George Brown. You have to finish your schooling. It's important. because you know yourself, people, you know, do it for a long time, and then they get away from it and never finish their schooling, which they need
100%.
by maybe need in 15 or 20 years. So I thought, you have to finish your schooling, no problem. I'll come after school. So he came. I says, okay. So he worked in the cafeteria. He served the staff food. He cleaned the plates. He mopped the floor and done every single thing. And I thought, this kid's good. And eventually, then he'd come up. It used to drive me nuts. I used to love this as well. It's the best thing. Then he used to come up after he'd finished and I was doing a chef's table. He wanted to come and help me. And it was just like he'd done all the crappy jobs there and never worried about it. And then sometimes people say, you know, well, it must be easy for him being the chef there. He went through the pain barrier. He went through and done the crappy jobs. And then he went to, after with me, he wanted to go to work in London. So here's a funny story. So with Anton Mosiman from the Dorchester in London, he'd left the Dorchester and had his own club. So he wanted to go to London. So I says, okay, fine, no problem. So I knew that Chef Mosiman was coming over for Mr. Snell's retirement event at the Hilton. So I thought, what do you put? I mean, you're coming, you're staying in a hotel. What are they going to send you up? A cheese tray or, you know, a bottle of wine? And it's like, blah, 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 blah. It's nice, but it's not special. It's not that special little thing. So I thought, Chef Anton Mosiman, one of the best chefs in the world, you know, put England and the UK back in the map, and globally he was so well respected. And I was thinking. So I thought, I got a room service trolley, I got a camping stove, I got the worst pot in the kitchen, and I got a hammer and engineering, and I beat the hell out of it, living hell of it. So it was misshaped. Camping stove, that, a tin opener, a tin of baked beans, 6 eggs in a tray, bacon wrapped up, a loaf of bread, a toaster, a cup, and a small plate with some local cheese that was, it wasn't before Niagara started, there was someone else making cheese, and I put a little piece of cheese and 2 crackers, and I put in a chef's hat. Every good chef should feel at home, welcome to the King Edward. And then I put Jason's resume on the tray, the table, and I went up to the room. And every time I see Anton Mosiman anywhere in the world, I remember you. But that's the difference. You have to think crazy. But that's what I learned in Washington with Doug McNeil. You have to do different things that are not offensive, but people, you know, it's surprise and delight someone. And it was just, you know, Darryl, you'd have loved it. It was like a little bluebell cheese, you know, one of those like little cheese sticking out and 2 crackers. That was it. But the most important thing was just to feel at home. And it worked. And so Jason got the job in London. So he went to work with Anton Mosiman.
Wow. Well, my friend, we're getting close to time, but can I have you back on again? Because we haven't even hit George Brown yet. I get so many stories. You know what? This has been so amazing because, like I said to you, we've been 2 ships in the night. I've actually wanted to have dinner with you, and we'll get to have that sooner than later. Okay, because there's so many great stories, and your heart is so big in this industry, and it just showed through again today. Chef, thanks so much for spending some time with us, and I will have you back on. Okay.
Please. Enjoy the weekend.
Okay. Well, thanks again, brother. I appreciate it.
Hey, and I was just thinking about you 2 seconds ago. Yeah. At least the weather's going to get warm, so you don't have to worry about cold legs with those pants and those shorts that you wear.
Okay, brother. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate
this.
We
can do another dance. We can do a foxtrot.
Okay, I will do that.
Ciao.
Okay.
Bye.
Ciao.